Good afternoon. How are you today? Well, I'm getting out a little later because I had work to do, but I did hear some of the trial. It's brisk and a little chilly here, thus I'm dressed up again. We're going backwards. We got to get this calendar going in the right direction. There are a couple of things from the trial I found encouraging. I found it encouraging that officers were saying that he was dead at the scene, because there had been some confusion originally whether he had died at the scene or died when he was at the hospital. And I think the prosecutor did a good job straightening that out. Another officer who gave very useful testimony, and that was today, was a fellow who was an expert going back to the 80s, I believe. And he was talking about how you put cuffs on a man and what it means when you put the cuffs on a man behind his back. And I've seen this, and I've complained about this in cases in which I had clients in which they were not anything like Floyd, but how they were hurting shoulders and so forth, because it puts an enormous pressure on the shoulder. And he explained, one, that if you put cuffs on like that behind your back, then you restrict your ability to breathe. So I said, if you're going to have a person like that down, you either have them seated or you have them on their side. And so what happened here was wrong for obvious reasons. But it's another detail that allows a juror to understand the misconduct. And so that was a very good piece of evidence to put into the case. There are two areas that I think not everybody appreciates. One is called white privilege. And if you say something like that to a person who's a good person, they think you're accusing them of something. But what it really means, white privilege, is that just by the color of your skin, you don't have certain disabilities that you have to deal with. And I'm talking about civil and liberty disabilities. So that a person of color who goes somewhere, even dressed in a suit, is sometimes looked at askance. A good friend of mine from the Hill, very prominent lawyer, vice president of a large company, well paid, well regarded. But he goes running and people look at him askance. In Washington, D.C., he had trouble getting a cab. And when he gets in an elevator, sometimes if he's wearing, more knock-around clothes, like you've gotten to see me wear on the trail, he feels them pull away from him. So that's the white privilege that he doesn't have. Now that translates into something that's very dangerous for a black man or a child or a woman. And you may have heard of the talk that a parent of color gives a child, which is when dealing with police, to be very careful how you speak and what you do and not to move too quickly. What does that have to do with George Floyd? He must have feared, when they were putting him in a car, the very thing that did happen to him, that he was at risk, that he was at high risk. That's a very dangerous thing. Imagine all the persons you know of color who have to tell their children to beware and be careful, and how even when they're older, an adult, they have this problem. James Baldwin said, I want you to not look at this. I want the same thing you want. Well, until we believe that in America, we're not going to make any advances. We're not going to make it among ourselves in the community. We're not going to make it in legislation. And we're going to continue to have people who die and suffer and lose advantages they should have. So that's another factor I actually think they should be introducing into the trial. You're going to talk about patterns of conduct and so forth. Let's talk about what Floyd feared and what was proven true for him in terms of abuse. In the category of the wackos among us, this afternoon, a fella charged the Capitol. He's in his 20s, I believe. They haven't yet nailed down what he thinks his motivation was. but Hill officers were injured. One may be dead. And, you know, I know it's inconvenient to have these fences and gates up, but I think we need them a little longer until we have a feeling that we've figured out how to be adult in America. So I hope that wasn't too much of a downer, but the trial appears to be going well, despite my criticisms of opening the door to certain challenges that might get one or two jurors at the end of it. And so I'm hopeful they keep pushing, and that this emotional aspect, this tie-in to watching a person actually dying because no one will help them and they won't let others help them, I think that's important. So I'll be out tomorrow. I'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.